But we get our first deviation from Bible canon when we're introduced to Kesser, totally canonical granddaughter of the biblical Noah and leader of the first group to set foot in Ireland. Noah, hoping that maybe the Great Flood won't reach the far west edge of the world, directs Kesser to take a fleet as far west as they can go. 40 days before the flood is due to hit, Kesser and the gang arrive on the green shores of Ireland, but there's a shipwreck and most of them are killed, leaving only Kesser, 49 other women, and 3 men, one of whom, Fintan MacBochra, becomes Kesser's husband. Fintan and the other 2 guys divvy up the rest of the ladies between them, but then the other guys die from confusingly vague causes, and Fintan ends up turning into a salmon and running away. Then the flood arrives and everyone else is killed, leaving Fintan the only survivor. I mean, obviously someone had to survive, because otherwise how would we even know this happened? By the way, I'll come back to this section later. There's some stuff going on. They aren't, and all 9,000 of them are wiped out by a plague in a single week. All except for this one guy, Tuan MacCarroll, who also survives by turning into a fish or something. It's called self-care, look it up. And other 2 names get used as bynames, kind of the same way Albion gets used to refer to Britain. But this part also contains my favorite bit, where the story full-on Ouroboroses itself, loops back to the beginning, and contradicts everything else in the book. See, Avarhan asks Banav to tell him a little bit about herself, and she says that she's a descendant of Adam, just like him, totally not a god, you guys, but she's older than Noah, and she was already chilling on this mountain when the floodwaters came. What the fuck? So yeah, timeline as the Bible. The Tuatha and the Favro were here before the people were, even though, according to this book, there were several waves of people here before them. But Banav, who's one of the Tuatha, was here before anyone, and Banav and Kesser are both supposedly the first people to be in Ireland, even though the timelines absolutely do not add up. And do you want to know why? It's because that whole first wave with Kesser and the 3 dudes was a Christianization of this exact story. The 3 surviving men were analogous to the 3 high kings, their 3 main wives were analogous to the triumvirate of goddesses, and Kesser, Noah's definitely canon granddaughter, was analogous to Banav, the actual mythological first person on the island, a role that fits a primal Earth Mother goddess a little better than it does a random human who dies 6 weeks later. Ugh. Anyway, the conflict drags on, and eventually the 3 kings suggest they take a break for a few days to figure out their next moves, and ask the Milesians to go back to their boats and stay 9 wavelengths away from the island. Surprisingly, they agree, but perhaps unsurprisingly, the minute they're back on the boats, the Tuatha summon a huge cataclysmic storm to keep them away from the shores. Avarhan steps up again, and in a very nice poem, asks Ireland itself for permission to land and make it their home. Clearly, Ireland is down with this because the storm dies and they return. Recognizing defeat, the Tuatha agree to divvy up the land with the Milesians. The Milesians get the surface world, while the Tuatha retreat through the hills into the other world and become the Ao-Shi, the people of the mounds. The book wraps up with my favorite kind of content, a super boring list of names. It rattles off all the kings of Ireland in chronological order. Hooray! And that's the Book of Invasions, handily summarizing all